is not a soul, not one single solitary person who is shoveling that snow that came overnight. There's not one of you doing it. And if you tell me that you're doing it, I'm calling you a liar. I will call you a liar right to your face. Nobody's shoveling that snow. If you were anything like me, the first word out of your mouth this morning was only 4 letters and 1 syllable. I'll let you pick which one I chose. I didn't know that was going to happen, but I look around and I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Lift it up on the snowbanks that are over top of my head? The place where the snow, however little fell overnight, is sitting is quite frankly the best place for it. Oh, my goodness gracious. You know, winter, old man, winter, you don't have to snow every day. It's okay if you take a day or two off from the snowing. Of course, I couldn't get enough snow shoveling, so I decided that what I really needed to do yesterday, it's the dumbest thing I've ever done, is dig a trench for Rosie the pandemic pup to enjoy the backyard. And of course, me being me, once I started into the trench, the path, so because the poor dog, like she walks outside and she wonders what the heck happened. Like, why can't I go to all the places and smell all the things in the yard that I usually get to go to and smell? Because it's my yard after all. But the snow that you shovel off the deck gets piled up so high. And then even if she tries to go over our little Mount Farwell in the backyard, she can't go anywhere really because she sinks in the snow up to her little neck. Anyway, my beloved had mentioned that she has seen people create paths for their dogs in the yard, and I thought, I can do this. And so I started, and then, well, that wasn't enough, and then I did some more, and that wasn't enough. So now she's got a whole, it's like a dog obstacle course in the backyard. She can go boot around if she wants to, but the best part about it was my beloved remixed it. I sent her a video to show her that, you know, when I leave work for the day and she's still at the office, nose to the grindstone, I don't just come home and put my feet up, you know. So I sent her a little video of the dog enjoying her new backyard track. And she mixed it with some great music. She picked Queen, You're My Best Friend, and posted it on Instagram. And it just brings me so much joy. I watched it again this morning. See that little dog running around the backyard and enjoying the fact that she can actually get around the backyard again. Taking that a little bit further, the whole thing about all the snow, right? This occurred to me, and I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I know this is like a once in a 20-year winter for us these days, and we're likely to get less and less snow as time moves on. But it did occur to me. We talk often about severe weather, the impact of severe weather on our communities, how we prepare for severe weather, et cetera, and how we have to essentially climate-proof our communities. Well, even before the big dumping on the weekend, I was walking over to a buddy's place because I had promised him while he's away I was going to take care of the snow, which I didn't shovel overnight. But anyway, and I was walking over there and I was just looking at the amount of snow in the neighborhood and how high the snowbanks were. And again, this is prior to the weekend's dumping. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so we're going to add another 300,000 people to this region. And we're talking about densifying our neighborhoods, more housing in the available space. We're struggling with the snow we've got now with the space we have to put it. Once we start putting more housing, and don't get me wrong, I get why we're doing what we're doing, and I'm not trying to be, you know, a doom and gloom guy and say no more growth, period, but I'm just logically pointing out, like, look around. And now you're going to increase density in existing neighborhoods by building more housing into it, which means not only more housing, but more people and less places to put the snow. When we get another winter like this, after we have intensified, whoo-wee, that's all I got to say, because I don't know where we're going to put the snow. We don't know where we're putting the snow now. Have you seen Toronto? They are almost crippled by this snowfall. Sidewalks, Don't talk to me about no sidewalks. They got sidewalks in Toronto right now? I'll tell you about their sidewalks in Toronto.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs?
No, sidewalks. But Toronto is one of those cities that clears the sidewalks for its residents, right? We talk about that all the time. Oh, yeah, Waterloo Region, they should have citywide sidewalk clearing. Well, look at Toronto right now and ask me how well they're doing. Look at Guelph earlier this week, a much nearer by utopia of municipal snow clearing. They shut down their schools because they didn't want the kids walking earlier this week. And that's a city where the municipality takes responsibility for shoveling the snow. The next time somebody tells you that they think the city should be in charge of snow removal on sidewalks, you tell them how Guelph handled it this week. All right, let's get to those 5 things. Your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. Number 1, snow events remain in place across the region as the cleanup continues from last week's nearly 2 feet of snowfall. Dave Schneider, councillor for Ward 2 in Kitchener, took to social media to explain.
Hey, it's Dave, and as I walk through my neighborhood, I bet it looks a lot like your neighborhood. Lots of snow out there. Hey, that snow event we started on February 16th that we keep extending, well, we're just going to keep it going until we cancel it. I want to thank our crews for doing an awesome job clearing the snow, and I want to thank you for not parking your car on the street and making it easier for them to do their job. We will get through this together. Keep showing that Kitchener kindness.
Meantime, municipalities are digging into reserves to cover any cost overruns in this year's snow clearing budget. Number 2, your tax bill is going up 10% in Woolwich Township Council, approving its 2025 budget earlier this week, with an increase of $116 more for the average home in the township. There will also be an additional $130 for water and sewer in Woolwich, and another $241 paid to the region for its 9.5% tax increase. Altogether, that's about another $500 on the tax bill for the average home in Woolwich Township. Number 3, on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, regional police responded to an increasing number of calls for fatal and major injury collisions last year, as fatal collisions jumped by 50% from 2023, and major injury collisions rose by 32%. Police also reported that 46% of fatal collisions that happened last year occurred within the townships. Number 4, advance voting in the Ontario election opens today, remains open until Saturday. Meantime, on the campaign trail, Progressive Conservative leader Doug Ford makes an announcement in Milton this morning. Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie set to give a speech at the Canadian Club in Toronto this afternoon, while NDP leader Marit Stiles is expected to make stops in Toronto and Brampton. Green Party leader Mike Schreiner will make a morning announcement right here in Kitchener. Election day is 1 week from today, on February the 27th. By the way, 1 week from today. That means today's February 20th. Happy birthday, Pops! And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5. Yeah, it's my dad's birthday today. Number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. The Kitchener Rangers have extended their entire coaching staff through the 2026-27 season, including head coach Jussi Ahokas, who is the first European head coach in the OHL. Ahokas had some fun playing the underdog role for his native Finland before that Canada-Finland game earlier this week.
Great country of Canada should be beating us little Finns, but we'll see. We'll be really fighting for. Yeah.
That great country of Canada should be beating us little Finns. Along with Ahokas assistants Jeff Kurzakis and Brad Flynn have also received 2-year contract extensions. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. How about $30,000 for the passengers aboard that Delta flight that crashed at Pearson on Monday? Are you taking the money and running? You going to do a little Steve Miller with it? Come on, take the money and run? $30,000. I mean, I'm so torn on this because of course, the idea of not taking the $30,000 means obviously you're going to get more when you open litigation here, right? On the other hand, like, you're still alive, right? So you're alive to take legal action against I'm torn. What are you going to do? You going to take the 30,000 and run? Or are you going to sue Delta? Would love to hear your thoughts. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. As always, it might just be me. And that's why I bring these questions to you, and you can tell me if it's just me or not. You can even tell me that I am out in left field. But here's the thing. So I heard this morning, much like I'm sure you did, because you pay close attention to Christine Clark and Mark Douglas on All News Mornings here on 570 News Radio. And they were talking about those offers being made by Delta Airlines to the passengers aboard that flight that crash landed at Pearson Airport on Monday. And the offer is a $30,000 no strings attached US dollar. So what? That's like 300,000 Canadian, right? Anyway, not quite, but close. $30,000 US, no strings attached. I guess, do you call that I'm sorry money? You could. Here's the thing. You're alive to accept it. And isn't that like, I'm just trying to figure out what contract you enter into when you get onto the plane. I mean, obviously, you want to get to your destination and get there safely, but things can happen. And something clearly did happen. And I suppose if your argument is it was the fault of the airline and or its employees, you feel as though there's some sort of case to be made for you to be compensated for that. And then I might even further ask, how much compensation is enough compensation? I mean, if you are so traumatized that you will never be able to fly again, then what is that worth financially if we're going to put a figure on it? All I can think about is how quick we are. Like everything turns into litigation, it seems. And I'll share with you again this what occurred to me while out walking Rosie the pandemic pup one day many, many weeks ago, before there was all of this ridiculous snow out there. It was actually a very nice winter afternoon. And yes, there were some icy spots on the sidewalks, but not too much to worry about. And as I approached one place not far from my home, I realized that the way they had designed their downspout, they had this really short driveway that was on an incline leading down to the sidewalk, and their downspout drained onto that short driveway and then to the sidewalk. Well, you can imagine as the water runs down the driveway, it's literally a sheet of ice. I'm paying attention out there. I'm walking by. I know that I'm about to step on a sheet of ice on the sidewalk. I'm going to take extra care as I do that. And I wondered to myself, if I fell down here and twisted an ankle or broke a hip at my age, whatever it happens to be, what would I do? Am I going to sue that person because there was ice on the sidewalk? Or am I going to say, you know what, Farwell, you need to be more careful. You saw the ice. You can be careful on the ice. And in my mind at the time, I said to myself, you know what? If there was an outcome that I would like from that situation, it would be that they reorient their downspout so that the water's not leaking onto the sidewalk. Like, it's a pretty dumb thing to have done because clearly it creates a hazard. So, you know, I fell. I took one for the team. Maybe you could reorient that downspout so it's not draining onto the sidewalk. What do you think about that idea? And that would have been sufficient for me because I assume some level of responsibility for how carefully or not carefully I'm walking on the sidewalk. You know, when I leave the house, I'm not inside bubble wrap. I don't want to be inside bubble wrap. So I don't know. I don't know if that's a fair analogy or comparison in this case, but you got on the plane, you got to your destination, albeit in the most terrifying way I can possibly imagine. But why? Why all of a sudden is it now we have to sue somebody? Like, you know, sometimes caca occurs. Mistakes happen. Are you taking the 30,000? Or do you think, oh no, I'm not taking 30K because somebody's going to give me more when I sue them? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Just ahead of a 9:30 update in the 570 News Center. Let's go to the phones, hear from you this morning. George, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. I just want to say that if it was me, I'm on that plane, and that happened to me, unless there was gross negligence by Delta, I would take the money, thank them, forgive them, and I'd be done.
George, appreciate the call. I think this is why I was thinking about during the commercial break, so I'll add you to it. Neither you nor I are fabulously wealthy, right? We're going to take the 30 grand and run instead of holding out for more. Paul, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good.
Listen, the odds on being in a plane crash are so slim.
But that's not okay. But Paul, that's not the point. The point is, are you taking the 30,000 or are you going to sue them for more?
No, they should be paying Delta because the odds of being in a plane crash are so slim. The odds of being in another plane crash are astronomical. Therefore, these people can fly and never have to worry again about being in a plane crash. They should be paying Delta.
All right, Paul. I see what you did there. I appreciate it. Well done. Andre, I got about 30 seconds.
Good morning, Mike. Well, I want to say that every person should be considered differently. I wouldn't take the settlement because you never know what can happen in a month or two. And two, Mike, isn't the investigation not over with?
Oh, yeah. Look, there's a lot of work still to be done. And I hear where you're coming from when you say anything can happen in a month or two. All of a sudden you get a really sore back or a really stiff neck, right? Totally get it. But like I said, that's probably why I'm not fabulously wealthy, because I take responsibility for myself. I like Paul's point. You should pay Delta. You'll never be in another plane crash again as long as you live. Statistically speaking, that is. All right, let's get you an update from the 570 News Center. And then speaking of paying, how much were the Blue Jays willing to pay Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and why could they not arrive at a deal for a new contract? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. What better thing to do on a day as wintry as this than talk about the boys of summer and a little bit of baseball talk? Sadly, this particular baseball talk also has, well, a cloudy side to it. I won't say dark side because it's not like Darth Vader is there, but Vladimir Guerrero Jr. might as well be Darth Vader. And I don't know who the hell that makes Ross Atkins, but we'll just leave that right there. Justin Kohler, an esteemed member of our 570 News team, joins me in studio. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning?
Well, I'd be doing better if, and here's the thing, the big if in this, I was going to say, is if the Blue Jays had arrived at some sort of contract agreement with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But I didn't like the fact that it went into this offseason anyway. I thought they should have got this done last year. But what's your take on where we're at with this?
I think you're exactly right. If they did it even months ago, even towards the end of the season, probably earlier the better in this case, it would have had a huge, drastic effect. I think Juan Soto being signed this past offseason, going over to the Mets, had a bigger effect than people realize on just how much Vladdy was asking for in these most recent negotiations. And when you pile on the stories of how much the Jays were wanting to give Roki Sasaki, Shohei Ohtani, Juan Soto even in that mix as well, all it did was show Vladdy, hey, these guys are willing to fork out money, so why not just bump up my asking price? And I think if they had jumped on extending Vladdy earlier, it would be an entirely different discussion of what's happening right now. And possibly we could have a long-term contract for Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
Ian Hunter, who is our Blue Jay hunter, works at this station as well. When we were talking about this last year, thinking the Jays have to get something done, the number we were throwing around, Justin, was $400 million. That's the starting point, somewhere in and around there. But your point is so well taken. When you look at Shohei, when you look at Juan Soto, now we're over $700 million. So Do you think Vladdy's in that ballpark, pun intended?
I think he, from what I've heard, he might be a little lower than that. Generally, first basemen don't go for quite as much as someone like an outfielder, even a middle infielder, so to speak, just in terms of their versatility. I read reports that I think David Ortiz, incredibly popular first baseman, DH for the Boston Red Sox, who's been in very close contact with Vladdy, gave possible reports of a possibly $585 million 13-year contract, which sounds about right in terms of what Vladdy would be asking for, a bit less than the going rate for an Ohtani or a Soto, but would definitely put him in the ballpark of the highest paid first baseman for the Jays, let alone for across Major League Baseball in total. I still think it's tough. This might not be a very popular opinion. I think even that number is a little high, especially in terms of when you look at Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s overall output in his career. Had a great year last year, really broke out, very similar to his 2021 numbers. But when you look across the board, he has been very streaky, to say the least. So I almost understand the front office's headspace and being a bit hesitant in forking over that much cash. But at the end of the day, the Jays haven't been able to sign any big, phenomenal stars over the past couple years. Again, looking at the Otanis, always in the bandwagon. Soto right over in there in terms of asking prices and what they're willing to fork over. I think they needed almost to at least get a bit closer to what Guerrero was asking for, even to just send a message to the other players on the team, other potential free agents moving forward. I think they needed to at least move a little closer to that number, but I understand what they were thinking in terms of avoiding a long-term contract of that length for Guerrero.
Can we just take a moment here to talk about the kinds of numbers that we're talking about to mere mortals like you and I, Justin? I mean, my goodness gracious, just 10 minutes ago on the show, I was saying, you know what? If Delta offered me $30,000 for a plane crash that I wasn't even thinking about suing them for, I'd take the $30,000. We're talking about $500 to $700 million. And I can't even wrap my head around that. I know for these guys, it's all about the more I make, the more valuable I am. It's almost an ego thing. But how on earth do you even say, well, $500 million isn't enough?
Oh, it's absolutely, especially when you compare it to other sports. Baseball has gotten quite ludicrous in terms of just how high these contracts are going for, let alone in terms of money, but then length too. This potential contract would have had Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with the team till he was well into his 30s, nearly into his 40s, I think, as well, 41, 42. In the realm of things like hockey and the realm of things like basketball, even that's unheard of. And even the contracts that they make are pretty exceptional compared to, as you mentioned, regular people, kind of like you and I, and I'm sure a lot of listeners as well. So it definitely sounds a bit crazy. And I think, like you mentioned too, it definitely goes to a bit of the ego side of the game too, and players naturally wanting to get paid for the work that they're putting in. And if the market keeps going up, their numbers will keep going up along with it too.
I've heard a lot of talk about Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro and their biggest contributions as Blue Jays management and executives to date is the updates and renovations made to the Rogers Centre baseball stadium. What does this tell us, Justin, about the duo who are and have been for the last decade running this team?
Well, it's tough when you look at it in an overall perspective, because I think one thing that's flown under the radar a little bit when it comes to Shapiro and Atkins is their contracts are coming up. There have been calls for them to be fired and let go by a lot of the fan base for quite a while now. And I think it's Shapiro, his contract's done end of this coming season. Atkins, his contract is done end of next season. So their tenure already is starting to run low. And you got to think at this point, they're probably going to move in a different direction for the front office anyway. I don't expect them getting huge extensions by any means. But it shows a lot to the, I would say, lack of consistency that they've had throughout that time, really, since jumping on board, I think 2015, 2016, they've only really done 2 overall extensions, one of which I think was Randall Grichuk for a few years, and he's clearly not with the team anymore. I think the other one was with Bo Bichette, just to avoid arbitration, a short 3-year deal. They have not really been willing to extend their own homegrown talent pretty much across the board. So it really, when the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. news broke, I wasn't terribly shocked that they weren't able to come to an agreement, because they haven't shown a pattern of willingness to jump on board in that way. They've really been pushing a free agent style way of building up the team, trying to avoid a big, massive rebuild too along those lines. So I'm not surprised. It points to, like I said, the general lack of consistency that I would say have come from Shapiro and Atkins going forward. And realistically, they're under a lot of pressure. Their contracts are up. They're not hugely under the gun, I would say, to have to sign these big things, because realistically down the line, they're just about out the door anyway.
Okay, so here's the $500 million question for you, Justin. Now what? Does Vladdy remain a Blue Jay? Is this going to be torn down to the bare bones and started all over again? What do Blue Jays fans expect here?
I'm the kind of person where for baseball standards, I'm usually a bit more of a pessimist. I like to be happily surprised when these things come to fruition. So I am in the camp that I think the Blue Jays as a whole are really at a big turning point end of this season. I think this particular season, 2025, will really be the last dance for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette alike. I think not getting Vladdy really hurt the chances of getting Bo Bichette, which were already, I would say, lower than getting Guerrero. So I think by the end of this season, realistically, they both might be gone. Now, at the end of the season, they do open up a lot of spending over the next 1-2 years, in particular when Springer's contract ends, I think next year. So they do have a lot that they can do now that they won't be paying Vladimir Guerrero and possibly Bo Bichette. Because even through arbitration, I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was, I think, the third highest arbitration value, just behind Soto and Ohtani in terms of average annual value. So they're going to have a lot on the books that they can do with. It's going to be the direction that they choose to go in. They've really leaned away from prospects. They've leaned towards, like I mentioned, kind of free agent signings. So I think the Blue Jays aren't bound for a big rebuild, but I think they're definitely in for a huge shift in who the major faces of the franchise will be going forward. And I think we'll more so see that towards the trade deadline and possibly a next free agency as well.
Yeah, they better trade these guys. Can't let them walk for nothing at this point. Justin Kohler, thanks for stopping by, joining us for the chat.
No problem. Happy to be here.
We want to hear from you, too. Are you disappointed? Is it time to clean out the front office with the Toronto Blue Jays? Are you an optimist or a pessimist coming into the season with at least Vlad Guerrero Jr. for now? Your thoughts always welcome on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I'm not surprised. It points to, like I said, the general lack of consistency that I would say have come from Shapiro and Atkins going forward. And realistically, they're under a lot of pressure. Their contracts are up. They're not hugely under the gun, I would say, to have to sign these big things, because realistically down the line, they're just about out the door anyway.
Justin Kohler from the 570 News Center joining us to talk a little bit of baseball. I think it's a good thing to talk about on a day like today. Sadly, the news ain't great, is it? The Blue Jays failing to come to terms with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. before he enters his final year with the team and free agency looms. And from where I'm sitting, I'm envisioning a future Toronto Blue Jays team without either Vladimir Guerrero Jr. or Bo Bichette, the two key cogs in what was supposed to be a rebuild with this ball club. I love me some baseball. I love me some Blue Jays. I'm not sure I love the idea of waiting, I don't know how many more years for the next rebuild to get us to the point where we're talking about playoffs with the Toronto Blue Jays. And it feels like the front office has just completely bungled this. But maybe that's just me. Love to hear your thoughts at 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Mike, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Do you remember Alex Anthopoulos?
Of course I do.
What is his track record compared to Atkins and Shapiro's?
With the Blue Jays? Oh, yeah, after he left. Don't even get me started after he left. All he does is win. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. So here's my situation. Here's our situation. I think Shapiro and Atkins should leave. Their strategy on the rebuild didn't work. I believe also, and I'm going to say this as a criticism against Guerrero and Bichette as well. They didn't turn out to what they should have been anyways either, Mike, because of one of two things. They didn't perform, or they didn't have the supporting cast around them. And whose fault is that? Shapiro and Atkins. So what I believe is happening here is that Toronto sports fans are getting the usual thing from the ownership groups,
They'll spend just enough money to put bums in the seats, but I don't think we're going to win anything anytime soon unless they're willing to shell out major dollars. And that's my thoughts, Mike.
All right, Mike. Appreciate those thoughts. And I'll just extend that from Toronto sports fans. I know the team's based in Toronto, but this is Canada's baseball team. We love our Blue Jays here in Waterloo region just as much as they love them in Toronto, just as much they love them in Vancouver. So I think there's that to take into account, too. Steve, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. My thoughts on this, this might not be a bad thing for Toronto. Remember, Guerrero and Bichette now have to perform this year. Otherwise, they lose a lot of their value. I mean, Guerrero, everybody talks about what a great season he had last year. He was terrible up until the time they talked about trading him to the Yankees. And then all of a sudden, he decided he should probably start playing some baseball. So, you know, they have to perform this year. They were both awful. Bo lost half his value last year, easily.
I don't think the injuries helped in Bo's case. You're right, and you're not wrong either, Steve, that Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s start to the season was just dreadful. He picked it up around June or so, but it was a really awful start for him. Appreciate the call on that, and this is the challenge. I hear where Steve's coming from, right? They're going to have great years if they don't want to diminish their value on the open market. But the thing is, if they're having great years and the Blue Jays are successful, then do you run into the problem where you can't possibly trade guys that are so important to your team this year? So you hang on to them because the team's doing well and go as far as you can go with these guys, and then the end of the season arrives and, free agents. And now all of a sudden, as Vlad Guerrero Jr. himself pointed out, you're competing with 29 other teams for his services. And to the highest bidder will go the spoils in this regard. I just think to not have gotten this done last year was a massive misstep on the part of the Blue Jays front office. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. How do you like your Ontario party leaders? Do you like them a little spicy, like Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie?
If Doug Ford has something to say to me, he should have the balls to say it to my face. That's what I'm saying to him right now. You got something to complain about? Come to me. Show your face. Where has he been?
I mean, now I'm starting to feel a little bit less guilty for what I said at the start of the show yesterday, which was that the season of winter was the biggest pain in the $. I mean, if Doug Ford has something to say to me, he should have the balls to say it to my face. So we've gone from the push-up challenge issued by Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie to saying it like it is. He better have the balls to say something directly to her face. I clearly have the impression that Ms. Crombie wants to be seen in this election as a fighter. I don't know that it's going to be successful, and I only say that because a writer who I absolutely love issued more than 20 years ago now, and he's got a long history of writing for, you name the publication, Maclean's Magazine, to the Globe and Mail, to the National Post, on and on and on, Paul Wells. And more than 20 years ago, he issued the following 4 rules for winning an election. Number 1, for any given situation, Canadian politics will tend toward the least exciting possible outcome. Number 2, if everyone in Ottawa knows something, it's not true. Number 3, and this is the one that comes to mind when I hear Bonnie Crombie, the candidate in the best mood wins. And number 4, the candidate who auditions for the role of opposition leader will get the job. So I don't know if somebody's in a good mood when they say things like this.
If Doug Ford has something to say to me, he should have the balls to say it to my face. That's what I'm saying to him right now. You got something to complain about? Come to me. Show your face. Where has he been?
Bonnie Crombie is a fighter. We can clearly gather that. from what she had to say. By the way, Doug Ford is going to be in Milton this morning making an announcement, and then he's off to Washington again. Ms. Crombie will give a speech today at the Canadian Club in Toronto. Marit Stiles has a couple of stops in the GTA, City of Toronto, and then Brampton. And Green Party leader Mike Schreiner will be here in the fine city of Kitchener for an announcement today. We are 1 week away from voting day. Advance polls are open today. Here's the thing. We got about 44% turnout in the last provincial election. How do we turn that turnout around? That's the conversation coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I read an interesting argument the other day that got me thinking, and the argument was that voters should not be blamed for not showing up. I mean, look at decreasing voter turnout, election after election, at every level. It just seems we're showing up less and less. But instead of blaming the voters, why don't we look at the system and the leaders that are being put forward for us to give votes to? Maybe that's where we need to start fixing the problem of low voter turnout. And when things get me thinking like this, I turn to our good friend Peter Wollstonecroft, who's a retired professor of political science from the University of Waterloo. Peter, good morning.
Good morning, and happy big hockey game day to you.
Oh, my goodness gracious, sir. Thank you, and to you as well. Go Canada, go.
Yeah, man.
When it comes to voter turnout, is the argument, and I know I shared the link with you, Peter, I mean, are we onto something here? Maybe we need to look at the system and or the leaders as opposed to looking at the voters and slapping them on the wrist and saying, shame on you, you really need to vote.
Well, I'd point both my hands at both of them, and but I tend to worry more about what's happening to ordinary people in our democracies. And just put it in context, in the last 60 or 70 years, there's been a long-term decline in voter participation in Ontario, in Canada, throughout the liberal democracies. So, and yet the system is in many ways more open than it used to be. Take Ontario. You could walk in anytime during the election period to the returning officers' headquarters and vote. You don't have to wait for the advance polls. In federal elections, if you're in Nepal and you apply, you can vote. So we make it very easy for people to vote. The advance polls, for example, have changed enormously. At one time, you had to go through a very difficult process to get approval to vote at an advance poll. You had to give reasons to people, to the bureaucrats, the people running the system. Well, this is why I can't vote, during the day you set. Now we do it over a number of days and make it easy for people to so do. So I think the way I look at it is that people produce a lot of reasons for not voting. And I don't think these reasons really measure up. So I think there's something deeper going on. And I'm going to recount a conversation I had a couple of weeks ago at my favorite restaurant. I was joined by mom and dad, daughter, her husband, and we were talking about various things. Eventually we turned to the election, and I asked the two younger people, are you going to vote? No. I go, oh, why not? Well, we're busy. All the parties are the same. And then I said, well, don't you like being a citizen? And they said, oh. And people don't look at it that way. Now, I'm happy to say I was just told this week that both of them decided they're going to register and vote, so I had some impact. So what I'm getting at is there's a tremendous decline in our understanding of what it is to be a citizen. And I blame the school system. I don't see much in the schooling, from elementary to grade 12, in which people understand what it is to be a citizen in a democracy. And that means you have rights, you also have responsibilities. And when I talk to young people, and I'm privileged to be able to do that, I see it as self-possession, but not much interest in the broader community. And if you have an interest in the broader community, that leads you to think about voting and using your influence. And so you say, well, there's things wrong with the system and our politicians. Well, maybe it's because there are not enough people participating. And yes, in the last election in Ontario, 44% of Ontarians went to vote. I think that's just a terrible, terrible situation.
You hit on something there, Peter, that I wondered if we would get around to in this conversation, and that is the impact that our school system could have if we determined or deemed it important enough to bring civics or whatever it is back into the curriculum to reinforce this idea of the responsibility that comes with being a citizen.
Yeah, and you know, my experience with the civics course is that they were immensely boring, and I'm a political scientist, and I'm interested in this stuff. But what you have to talk about is the idea of being a citizen living in a democracy. And lots of things happen if you live in a democracy. I think it's fairly well established. There are a couple of very trivial exceptions. But democracies don't go to war with democracies. Now, Mr. Trump may change that. However, the logic is that it's very difficult for democratic leaders to persuade citizens you should go to a war with another country that's the liberal democratic one. And so they produce some kind of solution to whatever the conflict is. Well, that's a big difference. Mr. Putin doesn't worry about stuff like that. Our leaders do worry about stuff like that. And you take it down to the way our courts operate. They're very open to the idea nowadays, not at one time, but not nowadays, that all people who appear in the court in whatever capacity should be treated with respect. Well, that's a fundamental recognition of democracy being based upon equality. And so that's an important value. And so when I talk to people about being a citizen, well, what's your problem with the idea of political equality? Do you have a problem with that? And if you think that that's important, then you should be interested in politics and voting. And I find people haven't thought about it, and they don't see the connection between being a citizen and voting in an election.
If we got only 44% in June of 2022, Peter, how do you feel we're going to fare in 1 week's time this year?
Well, I want it to be higher, but I fear it's going to be lower. Our wintry weather doesn't help, particularly in the countryside. And a lot of people will be away. I have friends who are away most of February, so they're going to miss the whole process. Ordinarily, they'd be voting. But I fear, and my political science colleagues and I, when we talk about this, we fear it's going to be under 40%. And I think that's just a very sad state of affairs where a majority of people will not go to the polls. And some people say, well, the parties are all the same. Well, excuse me, let's take the American case, because I've heard Americans say that stuff like that. I said, well, you telling me that President Kamala Harris would be the same as President Donald Trump? No. Doug Ford will be very different than Bonnie Crombie or Merritt Stiles or Mike Schreiner in various things. They'll focus on some of the same things, because everybody focuses on health care and so on. But, so what I'm getting at is the school system has to put some time, grades 9 to 12, in that age group. We say, okay, you're living in a democracy, and you're going to have to spend some time thinking about it, and you have to think about parties, but you also have to appreciate the fact that you as a person living in a democracy, that means you're a citizen. And my late wife in her political literature always said, "Dear citizen." That was one of the most important words to hear for her, and it's a word that I value. And I lament what I see is the innocence that people have. I'm thinking of the young couple I spoke to. I mean, I could see that they were jolted when I said, "Oh, what's this thing? What's this problem with being a citizen?" They didn't see the fact that they were a citizen had anything to do with voting.
It's a great reminder to all of us, and I'm certainly glad we could have the conversation this morning. Peter, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Enjoy that hockey game. You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Peter Wollstonecroft, retired professor of political science, the University of Waterloo. Full disclosure for you. I'm just going to be honest. I've been struggling this election. I really have. I always look for the candidate in my riding that I can put my support behind. I'm having a tough time. Just being honest with you. And to the point where this morning, as I'm driving into work and I'm thinking about things, I'm wondering, like, what am I going to do? Where am I going to put my vote? Am I going to decline my ballot? Maybe I'll just skip the whole process. But Peter offers that really important reminder. Do you want to be a citizen? Do you understand the responsibility that comes with being a citizen? I know that we are preaching to the choir because anyone who is invested enough in what's going on to listen to a show like this, to engage in issues, clearly is going to be voting, either at an advanced poll, maybe you already took advantage of an early voting opportunity, or you're all set to go next Thursday because you know how important it is to do that. How do we get the numbers up? Because it used to be that 40% was a nice number to reach for a municipal election. You imagine if we only get 40-ish% turnout for a provincial election? Shame on us if that's what happens. How do you feel about voter turnout? And what can we do to increase it? Whose fault is it? Are we not taking our responsibilities as citizens seriously enough? Or are the political parties not offering us interesting enough options? Would love to hear your thoughts on decreasing voter turnout. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
I fear, and my political science colleagues and I, when we talk about this, we fear it's going to be under 40%. And I think that's just a very sad state of affairs where a majority of people will not go to the polls. And some people say, well, they're all the parties are all the same. Well, excuse me, you telling me that President Kamala Harris would be the same as President Donald Trump?
Is it the chicken or is it the egg? Is it our inability or unwillingness as citizens to take the responsibility of our citizenry seriously? Or is it the political parties who are simply not offering attractive enough options? What's behind the continually declining voter turnout, and how do we reverse it? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Christine, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Go Team Canada.
Yes, go Team Canada for sure.
You got it. The only way we're going to turn the voting people going out to vote is get more candidates going door to door. Like, I've only seen one where I live. In all the years I've lived here, I've only had one candidate come to my door.
So if more people took the time to come to your door and visit you in your home, you would be more likely to vote.
Well, I'm going to go vote no matter what.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
But we need more candidates going door to door and putting forth, like, I haven't heard anything that the Conservatives are doing or the Liberals or the NDP. They're the only parties that have not been around. They've not put anything in my mailbox, nothing. So I don't know what they're standing for except for what I heard on the debate. And I'm more with the one party that was at my door.
All right, Christine, appreciate that. So the ground game matters when it comes to Christine's vote. And I might just add to that the importance then, because what Christine is able to learn about the party's positions on various things coming from the debate. There was the leaders' debate on Monday night, of course, but I've made a point of this and will continue to make a point of this at numerous local forums / debates for local candidates in the 5 ridings that make up the region of Waterloo. Conservative candidates have been absent, and that is troubling from where I'm sitting. David, good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Oh, David, you got to turn your radio or your TV down in the background, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Can I start talking?
Please do.
Okay, my issue is that, first of all, I'm in my 70s, and I've never missed a vote.
Attaboy.
However, my son, who's 41, has had a provincial issue, and he sent emails to all three of the parties, and not one replied back to him. Not one. And I was talking to him the other night when the leadership debate. You know what he said? Dad, I really don't care. If they can't handle this simple issue that I've got, how are they going to handle important provincial issues? And I think that's part of the problem. And I also think, like, I vote for the leader of the party. I don't know who the PC, the Liberal, or NDP, or Green Party. I don't know who's running in Kitchener South Hespeler, I think it's called. I don't even know who's running.
That is an absolute shame, David.
Yeah. So that's my issue. If you want to, address it to Mike.
I appreciate that. And sorry, David, you were talking right to Mike in that case. And I'm glad you shared that. I know that the Waterloo Region Record has been doing candidate or riding profiles this week. We've been talking about it a lot on this show, but I don't know that we've gotten into the granular nature of who's running, who your candidates are in each individual riding. So important to find out for sure. Ryan, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you this morning?
Good, thank you.
Good. Well, you guys are talking about voter turnout. It's 40%, or that would be a stretch or whatnot. Why doesn't the government just implement a penalty for not voting?
I think...
even if it's $100, go on your taxes the year following. That would generate, Doug Ford just gave away $200 to everybody, and it was $3 billion or something like that. So if you can generate $1.5 billion for people not voting, put that back into healthcare and schools.
Yeah, you know what? It's an interesting idea. Now, usually they say the carrot works better than the stick, right? So we should offer people the incentive to vote as opposed to the penalty for not voting. And then, of course, you get around to this whole idea whereby if one is compelled to vote, if it's mandatory, let's say, do you really want people just showing up to vote who are completely uninformed and only doing so because they don't want to pay the fine or suffer the penalty? And there we go again. Do we take our responsibilities as citizens seriously enough? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. You know what would make dealing with all this snow a lot easier? If you were retired and all you had to do every day was just take care of the snow. No other worries, right? Gary Chalk joins us for Living Retired next on the Mike Farwell Show. We'll find out how winter's going for the retired guy. This is 570 News Radio.
Hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's alright. I'm hooked on a feeling. I'm high on believing.
Every Thursday morning at this time, we get hooked on the feeling of laughter with Living Retired humor columnist Gary Chaka. Gary Chaka joins us on the show. Gary's Living Retired column can be found online at livingretired.press. And while you're there, do like I've done and just sign up for the weekly newsletter so the column appears in your inbox weekly, because those emails sure beat the emails I get from the boss. I can't stand those emails from the boss. Gary Chalk, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Micah, and Micah with a mic.
How is your back doing these days anyway?
Oh, it's sore.
I'm telling
I actually had that little dusting on the driveway today. Jan and I have this little competition. We sort of try to see who's still asleep in the morning to outsleep the other person, so they have to go out and shovel while the other person's. It's sort of like when you had a child, and the baby would cry in the middle of the night, and sort of lay there thinking, well, maybe she'll get up and feed the baby. Anyways, do you follow all the groundhogs?
Oh, I follow them, Gary, and I've got some bones to pick with them, too. I've got a few choice words.
I don't care whether it's Wyerton Willie or Puxatawny Phil or, I don't know, Kitchener Ken or Waterloo Wayne. I just want to go back to the days when Dave McDonald was on CKCO TV. He did the weather. It was easy understanding the weather back in those days.
It always was. Dave said it would be like this. That's how it used to go, yeah.
Yeah, Dave would look into the camera and he'd say 5 words. It is going to snow. And right away I knew it was going to snow. It doesn't happen that way anymore. Dave McDonald's retired, and it's Will Aiello, I think that's how I'll pronounce his name on CTV. He is a great TV weather forecaster. Even if he does have perfect teeth and perfect hair, the guy's too looking for me. I mean, I just look at him and I actually turn the channel off so Jan doesn't get to look at him and then have to face me at the dinner table. He's just too darn good looking.
He's incredibly handsome, but that's the point, Gary, right? We don't have to care then so much about what he's telling us about the weather. We might forget if he was wrong because we're just like, boy, that guy looks good in a suit.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Well, the point is the terminology, it's all changed. Dave McDonald would stare into the camera and say, it is going to snow. It's now replaced with 2 words, weather event. Right?
That's true.
And those 2 words, weather event, these days, it immediately catches the attention of a group of people, and I don't know who they are, where they are, but these people are called local school board officials, right? Now, when the local school board officials hear weather event, to them, weather event means another 2 words, snow day.
Absolutely. You're talking
Right?
my language now, Gary Chalk.
I tell you, snow day. Now, it means, of course, schools aren't going to open, and the buses aren't going to open. And as a result, because of what started out as a weather event and then became local school board officials, and then it became snow day, what you have is the roads to Chicopee and Blue Mountain, they're flooded with cars of families. Whee! We're going skiing. That's how the whole thing sort of evolves.
There you go. Well, and you have to go skiing because you can't toboggan everywhere anymore, All those warning signs. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that. What we have now is thousands of cars slipping and sliding. They're going to the ditch, all because they didn't bother putting snow tires on. You have snow tires?
Oh, you're darn tootin' I do.
Well, we have snow tires on Jan's car. My car is a relatively late model. It's an SUV, and the tires are in good shape. And if it's a snow event, a weather event, we take Jan's car and just leave mine there. But there's a demonstration that you can do to see if you have enough tread left on your tires. If you can grab a nickel and fit it down in between the treads on a tire, if more than half of the nickel is visible, it means you need new tires. And the nickel test works because everybody's, first of all, got a nickel they can find somewhere, and that's really all they have left over after spending their hard-earned paycheck on lottery tickets, right?
Absolutely. And you can take that nickel out of the little change jar you leave in the car for coffee.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, it's really, personal preference if you want to install snow tires. The way it comes down to, if you want to drive during a wicked snowstorm and be able to safely text at the same time,
Gary,
and hold a Tim Hortons double coffee between your knees.
There you go.
You may want to consider investing in snow tires.
Okay.
Now, if on the other hand you're having difficulty living paycheck to paycheck and purchasing weekly lottery tickets and complaining about the increase in the case of beer, maybe you shouldn't drive after all and send your spouse out to pick up the chicken wings while you watch football on television.
I can get behind that idea, too.
Yeah. Well, and just like they have snow tires, they have something called all-season tires. Now, that's got me baffled. I mean, I don't know. I guess all-season tires are just as their name implies. They're good for all seasons, which in Canada means winter and deer fly season in June. Right?
If only the tire knew which season was which. All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Gary Chalk this morning, and I can't wait to hear about our very first living retired research study that tells us of the relationship between a man's testosterone level and snowblowers. We're learning how to deal with the winter woes on Living Retired this morning with Gary Chalk. Stay with us. We continue on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Every Thursday morning at 10:30, we're joined by our good friend Gary Chalk, who is a humor columnist and writes the column Living Retired. You can sign up to have it delivered right to your inbox just by visiting livingretired.press. And on Thursday mornings at 10:30, Gary joins us to bring that column to life. I don't know how you do it at Living Retired headquarters, Gary, but you've got everything on the go over there, including your latest research study that draws the line between a man's testosterone levels and snowblowers. Please do tell me what the crack staff at Living Retired have learned.
Yeah, the way I do it is I have a long list of people who are applying to work at Living Retired. So I hire them as interns, which means that I don't need to pay them, I just use them. And many of these people are very skilled. They are university graduates, often with 1 or 2 degrees, and they can't even find a job anymore as a taxi driver. So they're looking for work. So I put them to work. And what they did was study, as you say, the testosterone levels in a group of middle-aged men who, first of all, these men had to demonstrate an ability to multitask. So the key question that the crack interns of Living Retired asked these men was, can you balance a television remote and a large bowl of guacamole dip? If you can do that, you moved on to complete the study. It's what they call research. You may have heard of this. It's a double-blind study.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah. What this refers to, Mike, is the fact the study was led by men and conducted on men. So that just makes it double-blind.
Well, we had a couple of double-blind referees at the hockey game in Peterborough on Monday, but that's a whole other story.
A whole other story. Now, for purposes of the study, only men, this was another qualification, only men who identified themselves as handymen, because we're going to talk about, your snowblower. So if you could identify as a handy guy around the house, you were included. So, of course, the crack researchers had to get the definition of a handyman, and what they came up with was, and it works, a man with boxes of tools, spools of various colors and widths of duct tape, and several broken home appliances that need repair. And then we moved on, and the study was concluded. In the end, Mike, it really wasn't surprising that the major finding was everyone knows now the level of testosterone in a man is dependent on the size of his snowblower.
Well, that's what he's using to show off how much testosterone he has.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. The snowblower factors can increase, obviously, as we now have known, is a man's testosterone. For instance, if you purchase a single-stage snowblower with no electric start, means you have to pull the cord, it was found to increase your testosterone by a factor equivalent to the distance the man threw the snowblower after tearing his rotator cuff while pulling up that cord. Right? What they discovered is quite interesting. They concluded that a manual choke on snowblowers was another contributing factor to increased testosterone. The purpose of the manual choke, of course, is, you produce billowing clouds of thick black smoke, about enough, if you can, to shut down the airspace over top the region of Waterloo-Wellington Airport. That's the manual choke.
Right.
Now, what of all this study came out were a few suggestions, some tips. Anyone who's considering purchasing a snowblower that will also enhance your testosterone, they should familiarize themselves with home snowblowers before they terrorize the neighborhood for the first time. So one of the features of a snowblower is the starting system. You've got two choices, they said. You've got electric or manual. And men who decided to purchase the manual start snowblower, they're always making other bad decisions. They probably drink rosé wine or enjoy alpha sprouts or things like that. Right?
Sure.
Yeah. Now, here's the system for turning on the snowblower if you have the manual start. There's 3 steps. One, you prime the engine. You press that button a couple of times, and it says on the button, it says primer. Now, the manufacturer intentionally used large black letters there to identify it as primer because they know darn well the audience is predominantly men, and men will not read the instruction manual. Now, the second step is you securely grasp the pull cord, and you yank it as hard as humanly possible. And then the third step, you swear at the top of your lungs.
I did that this morning when I came outside, too, but it didn't have anything to do with a snowblower.
Of course, what happens at this point, most men make the same mistake. They prime the engine again. They warn you not to do that in that unopened instruction manual. Priming the engine twice will flood the engine. The garage will be consumed with gas fumes, and you don't realize that till the guy lights his cigarette.
See, smoking is bad for you for so many different reasons.
So many reasons. Another feature of a good snowblower now is the distance it can throw the snow.
Of course.
And this is measured, our crack researchers at Living Retired found out this is measured by what they call the get even with your neighbor feature. A really good snowblower should be capable of depositing a couple of feet of snow onto your neighbor's yard with no problem whatsoever.
Wouldn't that be kind of cool that you can throw it from your driveway all the way over to their driveway?
Yeah.
I mean, only if you didn't like them.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, if you purchase a less powerful snowblower, they recommend that you use the get even with your neighbor feature when it's dark outside, because it's going to take you a couple of passes to be able to bury his car.
Well, good thing it's dark outside all the damn time right now, Gary.
Well, that's it. Of
Yeah.
course. Now, many men enjoy getting up early every morning to use their snowblower. The air is still. Everyone in the neighborhood is asleep. And they give what's called the two-stroke engine salute to their neighbors. to their neighbors. So there's lots that we learned in the study. Safety experts caution you should never, never, never put your fingers anywhere near the chute where the snow comes out. This, too, is outlined in that instruction manual, which by this time is soaking wet from laying on the snow-covered garage floor, right? And then they said that the most common injury from inappropriate use of snowblowers by men is, well, this is not a surprise, amputation of fingers.
Yeah, you think?
You think? It's alarming, but not near as dangerous as men who use X-Acto knives to repair their garden hose in the summer. And one final tip that the Living Retired researchers discovered about the relationship between the snowblower and the men's testosterone level, rookie snowblowers are urged to remove obstacles before commencing. This includes easily launched projectiles like rubber mats, lawn sprinklers, and smart cars.
Smart cars you have to watch out for.
You have to be careful. And that's all you need to know, all because of the crack research team of interns at Living Retired.
Gary, I don't know how we ever survived without this crack group of researchers.
Well, I've now got them onto another project. They're still looking for jobs, so I can continue to just use them as volunteers. With all this talk about all the tariffs and things, I'm convinced that Canada needs to unite behind our flag. And what I want my crack team of researchers at Living Retired is to come up with a plan of what we are going to do now with tariffs, increasing the price of a case of Bud Light.
Listen, there are certain things you just don't mess with.
You don't mess with.
Simple as that. Gary, happy snowblowing, my friend.
On my way. Go Rangers.
Thanks, Gary. Gary Chalk joins us every Thursday morning at 10:30 for Living Retired, his humor column that he brings to our program. You can find it for yourself online, livingretired.press. And while you're there, just sign up for the weekly newsletter so that column will be delivered to your inbox every week, and you can start the week with a chuckle. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Couple of minutes ahead of your update in the 570 News Center. Advanced polls opening today. We've been talking about voter turnout, elections on the show today. Glenn is on the phone with us. Good morning, Glenn.
Hi, Mike. Good morning. So, I was listening to we're talking about voting.
Yeah.
So the problem is because we have three people in our house, and we don't even know who to vote for because nobody comes around, nobody say anything, right?
So you're like one of our earlier callers who said if somebody comes to your door and has a conversation with you, then you can learn more about them.
Yes, because the only person we know Doug Ford, we know Justin Trudeau, and the head people. We don't really know who is running or writing or anything.
So what are you going to do?
I don't know. Maybe just go to the poll and look at the head of the list that we like. Say Doug Ford, then whoever comes under him. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So that's an interesting way to look at it. And we talk about this a lot. And make no mistake, provincially, federally, the leader can move the needle, right? So if you like Doug Ford, you'll look for the progressive conservative candidate in your riding. But this is the second person today who's talked about that so-called ground game for our candidates. And listen, I'm going to give them a little bit of a pass here too. You imagine trying to go door to door? This February has been a ridiculous February, right? How are you going to go door to door at times like this? And even if you do, who answers? Anyway, I got a knock on the door the other day from a guy with the other telecom company. And I just said, hi, work for and am currently in use of Rogers services. Thanks for stopping by, though. Couple of things coming up in our community that will help raise money for important needs. The coldest night of the year. And we're going to put your knowledge to the test with a trivia challenge as well. Those stories coming up in the next 30 minutes here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. I could not think of a better time to host an event called Coldest Night of the Year. It might not be the coldest night, but when we are buried under this much snow, it might as well be. And this Saturday marks the annual Coldest Night of the Year event in support of Supportive Housing of Waterloo, or SHOW. Its executive director, Brian Paul, joins me in studio. Great to see you. Good morning.
Good morning to you, Mike. Good to see you.
Could you think of a better time to be having the event than this coming Saturday?
Thankfully it's not last weekend, but no, this is, we were just chatting. I mean, last year for the event, it was so dry. It was cold and it was windy, but this is a new thing for us. But I think what it does is it highlights the need and the suffering that we're seeing people experience on the streets more than ever. So this walk is a chance for the community to come together, to rally in support of those who are suffering every single night in, as you mentioned, a particularly brutal winter. And they're doing it not by choice, but by circumstance. So it really is, it's a real opportunity for the community to rally in support of those who need it.
And that really is our why here, isn't it, Brian? We call it Coldest Night of the Year for a reason, to at least take a moment. Let's take one night to consciously think about those who, by circumstance, not by choice, are living in this every night.
Yeah, it really is an opportunity for the community to come together. I mean, at SHOW, we can't do the work we do without the generosity of our community. Really, they are an integral piece of what we do. And we live in a very compassionate, empathetic, and caring community. So when you have these opportunities to sort of mobilize and rally and walk in solidarity and support for individuals who are suffering, we see it as a great opportunity to sort of highlight a need and advocate for those who need it, but to acknowledge the support that we get and garner from the community, because it really gives us wind at our sails to do the hard and grinding work that we do day in and day out.
That hard and grinding work gets supported financially, obviously, because this is also a fundraising event. What does the money raised help you do at Supportive Housing of Waterloo?
So all the supports and the programs, the staffing, the overhead, the maintenance, all of the programs that go into what we do. So food security programs, income support, counseling, on-site health care, helping our residents feel connected to their community, to their neighbors. All of that is from donations. So everything we do, all the services and supports that we provide 24/7 support. So the staffing, all of those, everything you can think of is really getting those donations and that support, financial support from the community it really goes hand in hand with the work we do. We could not do the work if we didn't have that support.
Can you walk us through, pun intended, what happens on Saturday?
So the event is run out of First United Church, which is at King and William, and it's a family-friendly event. We're encouraging everyone to come out and join us. You don't have to be a former supporter of a show. It's really for everybody. And it's a family-friendly event. We are going to have music and food and a photo booth, and we're going to have a host of amazing people speaking. We have Mayor McCabe talking. We have Police Chief Mark Crowell going to be there, MP Bryce Jagger, MPP, NDP candidate Catherine Fife, and then we have an amazing host for the event. His name is Mike Farwell. I'm sitting with him right now. So the event starts at 4. Check-in is at 4. And then we're going to have opening remarks and a group photo at 4:45. And then at 5, the actual walk starts. So it's a 2-kilometer or a 5-kilometer walk, depending on what you and your team or you as a person want to do. It's really open-ended. Really, this is about coming together. We are not beholden to really getting across that finish line to do a 2 or 5K. It's really what you can do. And given the circumstances with the weather, that's not a hard and fast rule that it's going to be a 2 or 5K. It's whatever people can manage. And then we're going to return around 6, and that's when there will be a light meal and snacks and a celebration of getting through it together. And then at 7 p.m. there will be closing remarks. So it's really a 3-hour event, and there is lots of parking in and around First United Church. We are walking up King Street. And what's great is that through Coldest Night of the year, they are going to light all of the trees along King blue and yellow, the same colors as Coldest Night of the year. It's a national event, so there are thousands of people participating in this across the community and across the country to advocate and create awareness for those who are suffering.
How much are you hoping to raise this year?
So our goal is $84,000, and as of today, we are at $65,000. So and these last couple of days is when you see that final big push. So we are optimistic that we have a good chance of reaching that goal. Currently, we are at 173 walkers confirmed. So we're anticipating over 200 walkers, and we have 35 teams confirmed.
Can you tell us a little bit more, Brian, about the work that you do at Show? Because I know one of the more recent evolutions of the work is supporting seniors who are precariously housed.
Yeah, so we leaned into that population last year. So we actually designated one of our buildings to providing supportive housing to older adults. We saw that demographic was the fastest growing demographic in the shelter system. And we know that someone needed to step up to support this population. Many of these older adults experiencing chronic homelessness, meaning a year or more on the streets, have never experienced homelessness before. 4 out of the last 5 older adults we've housed never experienced homelessness before. And they would say, I'd never thought this would happen to me. They hit some circumstances later in life, and they end up in a shelter or unhoused. And so we decided to lean into that population. 50% of single adults experiencing chronic homelessness are over the age of 50. So this is an epidemic. It's a crisis. So there needs to be more supportive housing options for this particular demographic. So what supportive housing is, it's affordable housing and support, 24/7 support. It's not transitional housing. It's not a shelter. We give residents their own apartment. They sign a lease. They are protected with the same rights and responsibilities as anyone in the province of Ontario. And with that, individuals coming from years-long stays on the street, they're going to need support. It's not just about the affordable housing piece. They're going to need crisis management. They're going to need interventions, but they're also going to need social connection. And I've come to learn the power of that piece over my time at Show. Having someone you can talk to and engage with, and just knowing you have that support, that they can develop a sense of trust with someone. These are things they have not had for years. They've been living in fear, in unsafe conditions, having their stuff stolen all the time, getting physically beaten up multiple times, to have a place that feels like their own and it feels like home takes a very long time to develop. Not waking up in the middle of the night wondering, where am I? Am I going to get asked to leave in the morning? That takes time. And to develop that trust, there needs to be intensive support to do that. And that's what SHOW does.
Is there still an opportunity? I'm sure there is. We're talking here on Thursday, 2 days away from the event. Can we still get involved? Certainly, can we make a donation to help you get to that $84,000 goal?
Absolutely. So if you go to cnoy.org and search for Supportive Housing of Waterloo, or even search just for Waterloo, our name will come up, and it's there that you can register, you can donate, you can join. You can do it all right there. Also, our social media has been active in promoting the event. So Supportive Housing of Waterloo on Instagram and Facebook. We have a strong presence there.
CNOY.org. Look up Waterloo. And let's get us to that $84,000 goal. Looking forward to seeing you on Saturday. And thanks for everything you and the team at SHOW do.
And thank you, Mike, for your support.
Brian Paul is the executive director at Supportive Housing of Waterloo. Joins us on the Mike Farwell Show this morning, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Have an opinion? Call now.
519-570-2545.
1-800-570-5715.
And star 570.
The Mike Farwell Show continues in a moment.
On
Doesn't love a good old-fashioned trivia competition. This way, you can take bragging rights against your corporate peers, or even just individually within the office, whatever it happens to be. And this particular trivia challenge helps raise money for really important causes in our community. Joan Fisk is the CEO at United Way Waterloo Region Communities, and we catch her today, 1 week ahead of the third annual Corporate Trivia Challenge. Joan, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
It is a great way to get people involved in fundraising, because who doesn't love trivia, right?
Oh, I know. And who doesn't love the MC that's going to be at our trivia night, which is you.
Wait. Who? You know what? I've been getting some hate mail today, Joan. So, because I made the mistake this morning of telling anybody who shoveled the snow that they were a liar if they told me they shoveled. And people said, we shoveled. I was just trying to make myself feel better. Anyway, that's an aside. In this day and age, you got to try to find ways to cut through the clutter. And I think a trivia challenge is a way to do that, because you can have fun with your colleagues and your team members. There's a little bit of the spirit of competition.
And lots of competition.
Lots of competition. And at the end of it all, of course, what we're doing is raising important funds for United Way.
That's right, Mike. And, always these things, when we look back at our day, we think fun is an important piece that we sometimes miss. And when we look back, there are days when we just didn't have any fun. United Way is here to have a fun event that day and make it, that's election day. Now, Mr. Ford, he called the election after we chose that date. I wanted to make sure that people didn't think we were...
Couldn't he clear it with you first, Joan? Come on.
No, he didn't think about that.
Yeah.
We also know that we want people to have their say, vote. It's a great opportunity to make sure you do that, and then come to the Trivia Challenge and have fun. It's over there on the Catalyst Centre on Glasgow. There's about 25 teams so far. We may have a few more by the end of next week. But we really think that this is a fun way to raise money for our community, because, as you just had on the phone a minute ago, there's a lot of problems. And there's a lot of stuff that worries people. This is a day to sort of let it go and ask some funny questions. Of course, we have many for you to ask.
I've always enjoyed trivia challenges. I'm really looking forward to this one in particular, because I get to channel my inner Alex Trebek or Ken Jennings and be the person that gets to ask the questions. And you said we may still be able to get a few more teams in before the event next Thursday night, which is running from 6 until 9 at Catalyst on Glasgow Street. How can people get involved if there's still a chance to do that, Joan?
Oh, you just go on our website. You'll see a way to put a team together and come in. It's actually a lot of fun, because the questions are really community-based, so that'll test your knowledge about the community. And there's, you get 2 beer tickets, or drink tickets, I guess I'd call them. Great pizza that made at that wonderful pizza restaurant at Catalyst. I tell you, I don't think there's better pizza in the town. And we get to meet new people. And that's a great networking opportunity, but it's also so much more interesting than waiting for the results to come in for the election. We'll know soon enough when that's all over. We'll be done by the time it's all called. And you're going to be in there asking some great questions. But, Mike, I thought maybe I'd start a question for you today.
Oh, okay. Put me on the spot. Let's go. I'm ready.
Going to.
Okay.
Before streaming and podcasts, radio was king. What does AM stand for in AM radio?
Well, that would be, I hope, amplitude modulation.
Oh, got it right.
Oh, thank goodness. Whew. Mr. DeBoule, my tech ops teacher at Conestoga College, will be very proud that I can still remember that all these years later.
But, it's funny because somebody asked me that question, and I didn't know the answer, so I'm very impressed that you knew the answer. But we're looking forward to having fun that night, and so great that you would chat with us about it today. We want to talk about the way we need to have fun. It's a very, very difficult time. We're going to come into the spring appeal with with tariffs being top of everybody's mind, with some ways to support the community and add some relief to those who are going to be affected by that economic impact. So this is a good way to get in there, think about our brain, dusting it off a little bit, remembering what it was like to play Trivia Pursuit if you're from that era when it first came out, and a Canadian game, by the way.
Yeah, you want to buy Canadian? Let's support Canadian by having a trivia challenge for United Way Waterloo Region communities. And I love the way you've described this, Joan, as just that chance to get together, socialize, maybe do a bit of networking. It sure beats staying at home. Get out, hang out with some people for a little bit. And you mentioned earlier about the depth of need. There is so much need out there. The money that we're able to raise during an event like this, what does it help United Way Waterloo Region communities do?
Well, we're aiming to raise $25,000 on that evening, and we were able to do that last year, so we're thinking that we should be able to make that goal. That directly gets distributed to nonprofits and charities across the region, and we're working on a quarterly funding model this year that's very targeted. The first one coming up is housing and homelessness. So this money will be impacting people in our community with some really very tangible needs.
Joan, I'm looking forward to seeing you and the team next Thursday at Catalyst. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it, and let's have a great corporate trivia challenge.
We will, Mike, and thanks so much for chatting this morning.
Anytime
Take
at
care.
all. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Joan Fisk is the CEO at United Way Waterloo Region Communities. I think we can find room for you and your friends / colleagues as well if you would like to take part. Just visit uwaywrc.ca. uwaywrc.ca and join us at the 3rd Annual Corporate Trivia Challenge. I don't know if they're going to provide me the answers to the questions, but I will be asking you the questions, which is kind of like an extension of what I do here every day. Ask questions of our guests. And no, this is not just the half hour of the show devoted to events that I've been invited to take part in. Coldest Night of the Year on Saturday and the Trivia Challenge next Thursday. It just so happened to work out that way. And I want you to know about these things happening and the organizations that are doing the great work and how you can support them. Because that's what we do around here, right? We support one another. This is the Mike Farwell Show on 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Listen, I fully recognize that today, in this day and age, saying I didn't mean it or I didn't mean it that way is not acceptable. So I'll just say I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I mean that. Janet sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. Subject line, snow shoveling liars. Good morning, Mike. I've been a listener over the years, but this morning I was offended. Different areas of the city get different amounts of snow. You should be careful who you call a liar. I will listen no more. Janet. I know I said this morning that anybody who tells me that they shoveled the snow that we got last night, I will call you a liar right to your face. I was trying to be funny. I guess my delivery needs some work. I'm a talk show host, not a comedian. Robin Williams, I am not. George Carlin, Jerry Seinfeld, I am not. I'm just a guy who didn't shovel his snow and was trying to make himself feel better about it. I'm sorry for offending you, Janet. Truly not my intention. My good friend Arlene, too, said the same thing. Mike, when you made that silly statement, I had just come in from shoveling snow. Arlene and Janet, if you're still listening, Janet, you are much better people than I could ever hope to be, because I did not shovel the snow today. An update from the 570 News Center. And then it's Thursday. We're going to have some fun together on the show, right? Because tonight is the night. It is, I mean, come on. How excited are we for the big game tonight? Canada, USA. And then this whole idea about fighting in hockey. Does it belong? Let's talk about it coming up. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Okay, you just heard it right there from my buddy Hutch in the 570 News Center. I don't know how anybody's actually getting anything done today. And kudos to any employer who says to their employees, those employees who are at an actual office and not working remotely, that they can go home early, just whatever. It's a big game tonight. It's a big game tonight. I have a feeling that we'll see a lot of those memes about don't call Canada right now. We're busy tonight because of the big game. And then maybe tomorrow it'll be the day after the big game sort of call in sick. It's like an adult's snow day tomorrow because who can possibly be expected to handle work the day after the big game that Canada is going to win, right? So every Thursday morning, 11:30, we do this thing called the Flipside and have a little more fun with things, take a break from the heavier stuff. And I wanted to focus on the game because it is the big story today. I don't care where Doug Ford is right now. I care where my remote control is so I can focus on that hockey game tonight. And I thought if I said, okay, I mean, how confident are you? I'm just going to get a string of the exact same responses because we know Canada's going to win this game, right? We are exceedingly confident that Canada is going to win this game. And so then I started thinking about the last Canada-US game on Saturday night this past weekend that had not one, not two, but 3 fights in 9 seconds. And since that time, I have seen it reignited, the debate around whether or not fighting belongs in hockey. As Canada's head coach, John Cooper, said when asked about that start to the game on Saturday, I didn't see any of the fans running for the exits. It seems to be that fighting has found its place in the game again. I had no problem with what I saw on Saturday, but let's talk about it, shall we? Do you feel that fighting belongs in the game of hockey? And do you have a good deal of confidence for Team Canada tonight versus the USA? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Colin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass, a.k.a. Wobbles. What'd you think of that game on Saturday?
It was good. Maybe one of the best international hockey games I've ever watched in my life.
Incredible, right?
Yeah. And it makes me sad that we had to wait how many years for something like this to happen?
Too many years.
I think that should be I think about Bettman's legacy in international hockey, and I think that will be his greatest stain.
Do you think he cringed and covered his eyes when the fights started?
I hope not. I hope he witnessed all of it. I hope he absorbed all of it.
So you were okay with it too?
Listen, I hate stage fights.
Yep.
Stage fights. So the first one made me a little bit, I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like, felt like a stage fight a little bit. But the Brady Tkachuk one and then the JT Miller one, I was like, okay, this is passion. This is what I want to see. This is what fighting should be in hockey. Like, this is the moment. It should never be this thing where it's like, all right, here comes the 2 fighters, and now what are they going to do? They're going to fight. It should be, this is the game of hockey. We're passionate about it. This is a high level of skill going on. And, when you see guys like Colton Parayko fight JT Miller, when are you going to see that ever again? It's never, ever going to happen again.
It'll never happen again until maybe tonight. And I don't think it's going to happen tonight. But let's get further into this together, okay? Clearly, Colin didn't mind. I didn't even mind that first fight. And I'll tell you why. Because staged fights, I'm kind of with Colin when it comes to that. With the quote-unquote goons that we used to see, the real heavyweights in the league. These are just a couple of guys that, they're strapping young lads out there to play some hockey. And if, a fight breaks out during the hockey game, so be it. They knew what they want. They knew what they were doing. They willingly engaged in it. I don't want to see anybody bullied or intimidated into a fight. I don't want to see a bigger player pick on a smaller player. But if a couple of grown adults decide that they would like to engage in a little fisticuffs at the good old hockey game, I am personally okay with it. I loved what we saw. And I couldn't help but think, metaphorically, those Canadian hockey players were punching Donald Trump in the nose, right? Take those tariffs and you know what? These hockey players are the kinds of people that would have burned down the White House 200 years ago. That's how I felt about it. But would love to hear from you. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Kyle, good morning.
Let's go.
Yes, baby.
You know what? I love it. It was a hard-hitting game. Bring on the fighting. This is what hockey is all about. This is what we grew up with. We grew up with the goals, the assists, and the fights. And let's be honest. We show up for the goals, but we also show up for the enforcers, which we kind of lost over the years. But this reminds me, and I wasn't around at the time, Mike, so please back me on this, but this reminds me of the Summit Series of 1977. The hard-hitting, the politics that come with it, and you know what? We're Canadian. They might have won in the first round, but you know what? This is a game that matters, and we're going to win. So bring home the championship, baby. Let's go! Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Glad to hear the excitement and enthusiasm. I hope that is shared with all of us here in the region and beyond. Every Canadian. I mean, this thing is going to be a bonanza for television ratings tonight. I think Kyle means the 72 Summit Series. And I'll add to that this. I'm not a huge fan of Bobby Clark on Karlamov and smashing his ankle like he did. I think it was Karlamov. Whatever. That's cheap. That's dirty. You don't need to swing your stick at somebody's ankle to take him out. I'm talking about what we saw on Saturday. Willing combatants, right? They said, let's go. We're going to set a tone for this game, and they sure did. Jane, good morning.
Hi, Mike.
Hello, Jane.
Welcome back. You're so popular, it's taken me 3 days to actually get in to talk to you today.
Well, I'm so happy to hear from you.
Yeah, but I'm a proud Canadian and have the privilege of seeing our girls win the Olympics in 2002, 2006, and 2010. And this is just going to bring back so many great memories tonight. But I want to say, whether we win or lose, and I don't know, some people will be upset that I even said the word lose, but whether we win or lose, we are winners. When I have John Cooper tell him that his players can park their ego at the door to represent their country, and when I've heard through all my involvement with the women's hockey program, the name on the front of that sweater is way more important than the name on the back. I just wish, honestly, and you'll have some listeners disagree with me, I just wish our Canadian guys would not have taken off their gloves and let the Kachuk boys give them a swing and both of them sit in the penalty box for 5 minutes while we had a power play. That would have been the ultimate. But I think what's really upset me since then, Mike, is the number of people who are rejoicing and people who have gone against the rules of the game. There are two little boys, 6 and 9, watching, and they looked at that game and they said, "Daddy, I thought fighting was wrong." I said, "Dad, what are you going to say to your sons?" "Oh, it's all right. Go and fight." "Well, Daddy, how come they're in the penalty box?" So I know we want to stir up our pride, but when we have so many people commentating and saying, "Wow, that was the best game I ever watched," when we have a guy like Crosby, McKinnon, and right down the line that put that country first before their egos, then we've got a winner regardless of the outcome of the game. So that's my say for today, Mike. Keep promoting hockey. I love that you promote the women's hockey and the big tournament coming up too. But I will be watching and cheering and being proud to be Canadian tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time, Mike.
Thank you, Jane. Very well said across the board. And I've heard that same argument made about the young kids who were watching And I thought fighting was wrong, Dad. Why is this happening? And what I would say, because I've kind of come around on this whole fighting thing. I used to love it as a kid, rock'em sock'em, Don Cherry style. And then the more we learn about the challenges faced by those who engaged in fighting often in hockey, I thought, oh, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. But I've come back around. Look, fighting, walking down the street, yep, it's wrong. But it's something that's allowed within the rules of hockey. You get a 5-minute penalty for it, and that's it. And if you don't want to engage in fighting in hockey these days, you don't have to. Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon and Connor Bedard and some other, they're not doing it. They don't have to. Connor McDavid, although I saw him get into a fight in junior hockey in the OHL. Anyway, you don't have to engage in it. But if you want to, and there are lots of sports, MMA, UFC, whatever we call that, boxing. Hockey is unique this way. It's a beautiful game. It's such a beautiful game. And it allows you to drop your gloves and punch somebody else in the nose. And I, with no disrespect intended to Jane, I kind of like it the way that it is right now. Brenda, what do you think?
Hello. I do agree with the previous caller, but I have also enjoyed a good fight at the Kitchener Rangers hockey game, and in the NHL. But maybe your callers don't know that those two brothers, they were interviewed after the game, and this was all planned.
Oh, sure it was.
President Trump called the older brother and said, "Make America proud." Idiot. Anyway, but I do agree with the last caller, but I do enjoy a good fight in a game as well, as long as nobody gets, physically hurt. Thanks.
Thanks, Brenda. Thanks very much. Well, and this is why especially why I feel the way I do after what we saw on the weekend, because Brenda just pointed it out again. This was predetermined. These guys knew exactly what they were doing. So let them. The rules allow for it. Let them go out there and do that, and then go play some hockey. And to Jane's point a moment ago, was that not a beautiful game of hockey? And I say that even though Canada lost. It was so well played. I'm going to let you in on this little secret, if I can put on my hockey helmet here for a moment. Canada is an underdog tonight. Those American players played our game as well as I've seen our game played on Saturday. After that first goal by Connor McDavid that Canada scored, where were our chances? What happened after that? The U.S. played an excellent game. We are going to have to be on our very best in order to win tonight. I fully expect that we will. I also fully expect to not see a single fight tonight. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think there will be. I think they did their thing on Saturday, and that's that. But I will say again, unapologetically, I kind of loved it on Saturday. That was me. What about you? Bill, good morning.
Mike, something I can get alongside with you. I couldn't agree more. Have you ever watched the documentary or the autobiography of The Last Warrior, Chris Nyland?
I certainly have. Knuckles Nyland.
Yeah, and a lot of people that watch the game, they don't understand there's codes and all that. And I'm not, I talked to my brother who played for the 67s. He said, it's a different game. I said, yeah, but when you smash Crosby down and then wash his face out, and he said, yeah, you can't take a penalty, special teams. I said, I understand that, but I talked to a buddy of mine that played pro hockey before one of the expansion teams and blah, blah, blah. And he was so mad. He said, you can't do that. And I guess USA has 8 200-pound and over, and Canada has 2 200 pounds and over. So they're in tough, but that game, they were in it. They just couldn't get any pucks to the net. Tortorella, he's got them shut down. It's a big – I hope they win. I hope Canada wins in overtime with 1 goal, but I don't know.
Oh, I can't handle overtime, Bill. You're killing me.
I know, but it'll be exciting, though,
That's true. That's true.
Get the heart pumping. But I love O'Reilly in that documentary. He says, I really miss those old days when there was a jerk on the ice and you could just punch him right in the nose.
All right, Bill, thanks for the call. Things have changed since the Terry O'Reilly and Chris Knuckles Nyland days. But we're starting to, I think, find a kind of happy place here. Hockey hasn't banned fighting, so if you play the game of hockey, you are allowed to if you want to, and if the other person doesn't want to, they don't have to fight. But you can fight in hockey, and you can win if you're Canada, because that's what we're going to do tonight, right? How do you feel, though, about fighting in hockey? 519-570-2545, star 570, 1-800-570-5715. It's the Flip Side on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I think we're all going to agree that Canada will come out on top of that big hockey game tonight, right? Right? What about the fighting, though, that we saw on Saturday? How do you feel about that in the good old hockey game? As we continue the Flip Side this morning, back to the phones. Ernie, good morning.
Hey, Mike. I thought it was a great start to the game. It fired up both teams, and obviously it wasn't both guys knew what was going on, so there was two guys that agreed to it. So it was a mutual dance, you know what I mean? And as Don Cherry would always say, that like the respect that they do have for each other, that a lot of times like that, it's one of those things. I'm glad that we don't have the enforcers like we used to, because obviously you can see some of the damage that's happened to their lives, especially with the documentaries coming out. But Mike, man, remember the good old Wendy Clark when he would drop them, or the Darcy Tucker eyes when he would just let her rip when he had to go? Don't get me wrong, there's something still exciting about that, and sometimes you just got to drop them a little bit. You know what I mean? That's my thoughts on that, Mike.
All right, Ernie, thanks for that. I'll never forget Wendell Clark, ever. As long as I live, that guy will be forever etched in my brain. Mary, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I am fantastic.
I'm glad to hear that.
Now, listen, my husband's Irish background, and he tells me if you've got a party of the Irishmen, it's not a good party unless a fight breaks out. Oh, no, you know. Yeah, you know. And I have to think secretly, Mike, most people enjoyed that little kerfuffle. I think secretly they do.
I think this is the kind of show where we say the quiet parts out loud, Mary. Did you secretly enjoy it?
I mean, I understand not wanting the little kiddies because you're not supposed to fight. But my husband's grandson was bullied in the hockey. He was a good hockey player, not in the NHL or anything like that. And he just said to his daughter, "You get bullied, you punch back."
That's what Doug Ford said the other day, too. If you get bopped in the nose, you got to bop them back. He was talking about tariffs, and he was talking metaphorically. But I recounted this with my colleague Christine Clark this morning, the old Brady Bunch episode. Remember when Peter was getting bullied? So his dad taught him how to box, and then Peter punched the bully, and suddenly the bully wasn't such a bully anymore. And that goes back to 1970s TV. Grant, good morning.
Good morning. Nope, I would not allow fighting in hockey. And this foreign nation,
why don't you want to have fighting in hockey?
It's all about the plays, passing plays.
But after 9 seconds, then we saw 59 minutes and 51 seconds of really good hockey.
If Wayne Gretzky doesn't fight, then these other yahoos don't need to fight.
All right. You know what? You're not going to get an argument from me when you talk about the way the greatest player to ever play the game played the game. I love me some Wayne Gretzky, and you're right. I mean, he probably did get into one or two somewhere along the lines, right? But if Wayne Gretzky didn't need to fight, why does Brady Tkachuk need to fight? Good question posed by Grant. Here on the Flip Side this morning, this is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Among the conversations we've had on the show today, voter turnout. About 44% for the last provincial election. Some will say it's going to be even lower next week. Advanced voting opens today. Election day is 1 week today on the 27th. Kathy sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com. Says, "Hi, Mike. I have faithfully voted time after time, even in municipal elections. But honestly, this time around, I'm finding it hard to summon the energy." Can we summon some energy for Kathy. Can we reverse this concerning trend of declining voter turnout? Maybe something we can talk about in the next hour as we keep our phone lines open to you for the 12 o'clock Talkback Hour. How do we get more people engaged in the electoral process? We'll talk about that and more as we continue the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
I shared with you just before that update with Matt Hutchison from the 570 News Center an email from Kathy who says, I'm just finding it hard to summon the energy to get out to a polling station this time. And her email goes on to read, I never received a voter's card or information about where to vote. I checked online to be sure I'm registered, but without the card, I'm unsure about what to bring with me once I figure out where I'm supposed to go. We desperately need some form of ranked or proportional voting if we're going to get folks out to vote. We need to know our vote counts. Kathy, appreciate the email to Mike at 570news.com. I also am wondering where in HE double hockey sticks my voter information registration card is. But by all means, when you go to a polling station, ID will serve you well. And that polling station should be one of the usual suspects in your neighborhood, right? But I do wish more of that information was coming out. This campaign feels like it has gone by in the blink of an eye. And I can't help but think all of this is by design, right? We know the election was called early because Doug Ford figured he had the best chance at re-election by going now. So he can assure himself of an additional 18 months in office. Should he then in 2029 not be successful again, at least he lasted until sometime in 2029 instead of facing the voters again in 2026 when he was supposed to. So that sort of thing. But really, when it comes down to summoning the energy, this is the part that's concerning me. And when we talked to Peter Wollstonecroft earlier today on the show about declining voter turnout and concerns around it, I loved the way Peter put it. He said, are we considering enough our responsibilities as citizens? Because a responsible citizen in a democracy takes part in elections. It's one of the things that you are required to do by virtue of participation in that community. And I hope that message gets through. And I've heard some people since say, hey, we should do like Australia does and make it mandatory. There should be a penalty for not voting. And I've gone back and forth on this over the years, too, thinking that maybe mandatory voting is the way to go. But then there's this idea that people are just showing up because they have to. They're not informing themselves about who to vote for. They're just showing up because they have to under threat of penalty. I don't know that that's the kind of person I want casting a ballot either. So I'm a little bit stuck. But I certainly hope you're getting engaged and getting out there to cast a ballot, either at the advanced polls, which open today, or certainly next Thursday, the 27th, which is Election Day here in Ontario. Let's get to your calls here on the Talkback Hour. Dave, start us off.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Hi, Dave.
3 quick points. One is this morning I opened up my mailbox and my $200 was there, and my voter registration card was there. So that's the first thing. And no, it did not change or influence my vote. That's a separate issue.
Okay.
Second thing is I want to give you a thumbs up being the moderator. I just watched it early this morning because I taped these things on your being moderator for the Cambridge
the debate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
debate or whatever.
Yeah, I like to call them forums, but whatever. Sure.
Yeah, whatever. And a thumbs up to those who actually showed up.
Absolutely.
Very well managed, mannered. Everybody was positive, and how they it was just a positive show all around. So,
glad you enjoyed it.
And the third thing is, I don't know if it slipped your mind, or you thought you would mention it, or you already had mentioned it, because I know you already mentioned it before. But at the time, the telecast the other morning, the pre-game telecast on Hockey Night in Canada, where you mentioned, of course, your theme song.
Yes.
But I didn't hear you mention that Ron McLean also mentioned that the ice machines resurfacing, or whatever you call those things, was made in Canada.
I did not hear him say that. So they must have been Olympias, the ice resurfacing machines from Elmira.
Correct.
Love it. I love it.
He didn't say Elmira. He just said they're made in Canada.
Wow, we got to get Ron a book, a geography. And then, what kind of book does he need with the maps in it?
Well, he probably knew it, but he didn't want to go there because who else in Canada would know it's Elmira?
Well, that's okay. They can look it up after we tell them. In good old Woolwich Township.
And all right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. You too, Dave. Appreciate the call. I love it. Walter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So, a couple of points, Mike. I won't take long. When I was speaking with young Nick there, he was quite enthralled with you, Mike. He must have really...
It's the first time in 10 days for...
I don't know what that. I don't know what that was.
Oh, okay.
I don't know where that came from. I was looking around too, Walter. Sorry, you were speaking with young Nick. Who's young Nick?
He works for the Rangers.
Yeah, we call him Little Nick. We got Little Nick and Big Nick. He's a good kid, Little Nick.
Yes, I was just going to say that he had very nice things to say about you and smiled every time that I mentioned your name.
He was lying. Don't worry about it. I pay him. I pay him.
Okay, well, okay. I was hoping that that wasn't the truth. But, the reason I'm calling was that I was over at Conestoga College last night, and they had the Wixa High School Volleyball Championships on last night. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the Jacob Hessler Hawks that won the senior Wixa game, and they are now headed to Rim Park tomorrow, apparently, for the Kawasa Championship. And so I know you like to support the youth in the community, Mike, so I thought I'd throw that out there, and I'm sure there's a lot more intelligent people that want to get on here, so I'll let you go, buddy.
All right, Walter, thank you for that. It's going to be a busy place, Rim Park, this weekend. If they've got the volleyball tomorrow, they've got dodgeball, the provincial championships on the weekend. And in case you're wondering about Little Nick and Big Nick, who are members of the Kitchener Rangers staff, Walter ran into at least Nick on the road when we were in Kingston because he was there. Lots of varsity sports going on. There was a big tournament going on, and a couple of them in Kingston. So I didn't get to see Walter, but he saw somebody from the team, and apparently they said nice things, which is always nice. It's always nice. All right, Sean and Peter and Bob, hang on. And there's a line for you if you want to be a part of the Talkback Hour as we continue here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Busy Talkback Hour. Right back to the phones we go. Sean, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mike. I was listening to yesterday's show, and I heard your little joke this morning. Now, I know that you really hate the winter and you really hate snow, but my goodness, man, you're continuously whinging. It's not dignified nor complimentary to a man of your advancing years. My goodness me.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to stop. I will not stop that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you got to develop a sense of humor.
I have one. Shut up.
I mean, you're not actually in hell. I mean, you have to drop the attitude. You're not actually in hell.
I have to drop the attitude. What? I'm not going to have a show if I drop the attitude, Sean.
No, you have to modify it.
Okay.
You're not actually in hell. You're just in the car park beside hell at the concession stand. You know what I mean? Get a sense of humor.
All right, fine.
You know what I mean? Just chill, dude.
I had a sense of humor, Sean, and then it snowed for 40 days and 40 nights.
I know, but you're going to end up like Grandpa Simpson yelling at clouds.
That's okay. That's what I'm here for. I like clouds. All right.
All righty.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. I know. Listen, I try. I do. But look at it out there. This sucks. Peter, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'd like to make a few points on voter turnout.
Sure.
First of all, I don't think anyone would disagree with me that we live right now in a dystopian society where the prevailing attitude is after me, I come first. That seems to permeate to the various multicultural communities where they are not freely and democratically voting. They are being instructed on who to vote for. Just like an educated consumer is our best customer, an informed and educated voter is the best voter, and that is not happening. And the responsibility here lies with the various governments and the Elections Canada and Elections Ontario. They're not doing enough to educate the constituents in the various multicultural communities, because if that were the case, we wouldn't have the poor representation that we have now at all three levels of government.
All right, Peter. Listen, fair point across the board. I don't know why the multicultural communities keep coming into this, because I loved your first point about after me, it's I. Like, I do feel as though, and Peter Wollstonecroft, our guest from the University of Waterloo, retired professor of political science, said something similar this morning, where we're kind of in it for ourselves and not thinking about the community more broadly. At least not the way we once did. I agree with that part. Again, I'm not sure where all the references to multicultural communities comes into all of this. And as far as Elections Canada and Elections Ontario goes, I would submit to you that it is not the responsibility of those agencies to educate us. It's the responsibility of those agencies to inform us where we have to vote and take care of all of those things, manage the elections themselves. It is our school system and our curriculum that should support our engagement in our communities. And Peter Wollstonecroft and I talked about that earlier today as well. We've got to make civics a more important part of our school system from elementary right on through. There's got to be a way to create a more informed and engaged citizen, because citizens have responsibilities. And I think those responsibilities should also be reinforced. Bob, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Yeah, hi, Mike. It's Tinfoil Hat Bob.
Who, what now?
Tinfoil Hat Bob.
Tinfoil Hat Bob.
At least that's what it was called yesterday.
Well, yeah, because I can't remember what you were going on about, but yeah. What did you go on about that I called you Tinfoil Hat Bob?
I said the Conservatives would whine if you try to reorganize about the way we vote.
You said they would say it was a rigged election.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you go. Take the tinfoil hat off today and talk about something else.
Well, I want to say, I think one of the reasons I think people don't show up and vote, some people don't. I don't think the polls should be put out to the people. I think they should be put to the parties. Because some people hear the polls and say, Doug's got 40-something percent of the vote already. And the other people are down, why should I vote? It won't make a difference.
So you don't want any polling results coming out before the election?
Not to the public, no.
Okay.
At least parties can hear it because that way they can know how they're doing. And I think there should be an award if you do vote that you get a refunded income tax time of some kind.
Yeah, that's the carrot instead of the stick, right? Yeah. Somebody before said you have to pay a $100 fine if you don't vote, but you say income tax break if you do vote.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what? They say positive reinforcement is the better reinforcement. Could be. Would you be more inclined to go out and vote if you got a little bit extra in your tax refund? It's your 12 o'clock Talkback Hour on the Mike Farwell Show. We continue, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Right back to the phones we go, continuing your Talkback Hour today. Tom, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike. No chaos today, okay?
Okay, no chaos.
Okay. So, first of all, yesterday you were talking about the Liberals and that. I think Marit Stiles missed an opportunity of asking those 8 Liberals who didn't have official status to sit in Queen's Park to join the NDP party.
Why not? Easier to move over 8 than it is to move over, 26 or whatever?
What I mean, she missed that opportunity because now they need 12 seats, right, to gain their official status, correct?
I think that's the number.
That's right. So there was a prime opportunity to do the same thing that the Alliance did with those remaining progressive conservatives at that point in time, thinking they could get those 8 members of the Conservative Party to join and to beat the Liberals. Now, if I can piggyback on what you were saying, that I agree with you wholeheartedly that civics needs to be taught back in school again. And it is the responsibility of every political party to be more available and to have more forums that aren't orchestrated and conducted, to have an open forum where citizens can go to, say, to a high school and some person of a political party or all members of the political party, at least every quarter, have a meeting, have what do they call town hall meetings to discuss certain things and listen to the people of the community. Because as I asked you, I think last week, and I was like, I had no idea who the NDP representative was in Cambridge. It was Marjorie Knight. Well, I didn't know who Marjorie Knight was. Nobody knows. We don't know who certain people are. And the younger generation needs to be more informed, not just by going on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, but they need to be more informed and understand the processes and the checks and balances and why they should be involved in the democratic process. Because, in all honesty, is that we all become disillusioned at some point in time in that, and it just seems that it's me first and me first and I second, which I agree with that policy as well, that thought as well.
All right, Tom, appreciate that call. Me first, I second it. And I recognize, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, our parents said the same things about us. But I don't know, it feels that way, that's for sure. Just to go back to some of the things we were talking about with regard to actually getting to a polling station. I don't know if you knew, but you had to, this time around, by February the 17th, register in order to receive your voter registration card. If you didn't, you're not going to get one. If you did do that registration process online, those cards are in the mail. But fear not, you can still vote even if you don't have that voter information card. All you have to do is bring one piece of ID with you to your polling station, and you can find that polling station just by visiting elections.on.ca and putting in your postal code. It'll tell you where to vote. So don't worry if you didn't get the card. You can still place your vote, and that's the important thing to do. Elections.on.ca. Your Talkback Hour continues on the Mike Farwell Show. Love this email from Phil to Mike at 570news.com. Mike, I'm voting as I do every election in tribute to those veterans that had their lives disrupted and fought so I can have my voting right and privilege. Even if a person doesn't know who to vote for, show up at a polling station, acknowledge your presence, and X the entire document. If you don't vote, you have no right to complain about the government later. Appreciate the email, Phil. It is our 12 o'clock Talkback Hour, 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. Pro tip, if you try one number and you don't get through on that one, you can try another because you can bounce around on those 3 different options here. Let's go back to the phones. Yvette, good afternoon.
I just wanted to call quick and let people know. So my mom just went looking for her advanced polling station. So she lives in Waterloo. So she tried the 725 Bridge Street West Unit 101 for advanced voting, and it was totally inaccessible. So there was no parking. The snow wasn't cleared. So she has accessibility issues, so she couldn't go there at all. So in her car, she looked up the next closest one, and it was Rim Park. And she said that was only 5 minutes away from her. She lives on Northfield, and she said it was super easy at Rim Park, and it was totally accessible, and she was in and out in a few minutes. So I just wanted to let any Waterloo voters, if they're going out today, to avoid that one and go to Rim Park instead.
Thanks, Yvette. Really appreciate that.
No problem.
That's a great reminder to us. And Clive sent an email earlier, which Yvette reminds me of, and he had been also to the advance poll at Rim Park, said it's busy already, but also pretty efficient too. So if you are so inclined, you Waterloovians, get out there and cast your advanced ballot today. Save yourself the time next week. Afif, you're on the Talkback Hour. Good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike. First of all, I want to apologize about the A drop yesterday.
The A drop? Did you do an A drop?
When I said, I want to take the train all the way to Montreal to take the A.
Oh, I got you. Yeah, the team that shall not be named shall remain nameless, Afif.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's it. So first of that. But second of all, I'm annoyed with Rob still.
Why?
Because I think a few days ago, I heard him say, one guy, the guy Peter, and he's like, "Oh, who would you like to win? The NHL." He's like, "I want anybody to win except Toronto."
Yeah. Well, Rob Snow got dropped on his head when he was a child, so don't worry about his hockey preferences, okay?
I was like, "Oh my God, why?" Have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, Afif. I'll tell you why. Because Rob is originally a Maritimer, which makes him probably by default a fan of the team that shall not be named, right? Geographically speaking, a lot of Maritimers enjoy that team. And then now making his home in the, let's call it the greater Ottawa area, he probably cheers for those goofy, that other goofy Ontario team. So whatever. It's fine. All is fair in love and sports, okay? Simple as that. Mary, good afternoon. Mary?
Oh, hi. My God. Well, listen, I'm on my bike and I'm doing three different jobs at one time.
Okay. Well,
now, listen.
Yes, dear.
Well, most of the people that loyally vote are the elderly. Is that correct?
I think that, yes, older people are more likely to go out and vote, yes.
Yes. Of course, Ford has, and sometimes I want to say Ford, and then I say Trump, and I say, what the hell? But anyway, he called this election in a bad time of year, probably knowing that a lot of people wouldn't get out. And the more that don't go out, the higher his chances are of getting a win. Right?
I would also agree with that, Mary.
Yes. All right. I'm having a hard time, and as you know, I'm in my 80s. Lots of people in my age group do not have the gadgets to look up anything. You say go to elections, whatnot.
Elections.on.ca.
But a lot of people don't have the
I know.
gadget.
It's the best I can do, Mary. I don't know what else to tell you.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
I've had nobody at the door. I understand that the weather is bad. I have to Google, and thankfully I can get some names, as the other lady said. I don't even know who's running in my riding. And this has been very, very, very poor for information to people. It's very poor, I'm sorry. But on the other hand, then, I called my elections thing. I was a day late. And, of course, my husband can't walk very well and whatnot. And I'm so pleased to say they're coming here.
Lovely.
And another guy said that to you, and I think that's a real improvement. I'm going to knock their socks off.
Okay, Mary. Happy pedaling. Mary's on her stationary bike and doing the best that she can today. Listen, I wish I could help you more than just the website. Elections.on.ca. Many of us have computers these days. If you would rather phone, if you don't have the gadgets, like Mary said, pay attention. Here comes the number. 1-888. So that's 1-888-668-8683. I'll tell you again. 1-888-668-8683. 8683. That's the number for Elections Ontario. That'll help you out. And just in terms of not knowing who's running in your riding and your frustration around it, I get that. But please, could we put in the effort? Because it's important, right? I'll come back to those responsibilities as citizens. Matt, Talkback Hour over to you. Good afternoon.
Hey, Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I just want to say, I'm a first-time voter. I just freshly turned 18 in 2024, so it's my first election I get to vote for. So I'm sort of new to the whole thing, but I want to say there's not a lot of information they're not sort of putting anywhere. Like, I got to go dig for myself to find out again who's in my riding, where I have to go to vote. I'm a student, so it's not very easy and accessible for me. At least it's reading week this week, so I'm able to vote at home. But if it wasn't reading week, it'd be a challenge for me to vote because I'm pretty sure it's you're not able to vote in your school city, I believe, is what I saw online. But they have all the social media and everything now, but I haven't seen one post, one ad anywhere sort of advertising the election, which I feel is a bit of an issue when it's, especially when it becomes federal. Like, no wonder we have such poor voter turnout when we're not sort of the younger demographic. They don't really know what they're doing, and no one's sort of there to guide them and assist them, I feel like, Mike.
You know what, Matt? I really appreciate that. It's a great point, and I'll bring it back to then the civics that must be instilled, embedded, emphasized in our curriculum. So Matt, by the time he reaches post-secondary, has a better understanding. But it's also a good point, and I don't know if there is anything mandated. Forgive me. I'm just going off the top of my head here now. But as to an amount that Elections Ontario or Elections Canada must spend advertising the election. I've seen lots of ads, electronic digital ads, for various parties and various party leaders. I'm not sure I've seen one from Elections Ontario. Matt might be onto something with that. Your Talkback Hour continues here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio, Rogers TV. It is your hour to talk back, and to the phones we go. Mark, good afternoon.
Hello, Mike.
Hey, Mark.
Hi, Mike, I'd like to see another NHL expansion team.
Nope.
What do you mean, no?
I mean, have you watched how good the hockey is during the Four Nations face-off?
Oh, I watch every single game, Mike. It's awesome.
Right. And so it's so good because there are so few teams. So the very best players get to play every shift. If we add another, there's too many teams already. I hate to say it.
Okay, get rid of a couple of the U.S. teams.
How about that team in Quebec? Can we get rid of them too?
They're gone, Mike.
Okay.
They're gone. They're history.
In the province of Quebec, not Quebec City. Anyway, forget it. Why you want to add another team? Why?
Why?
Yeah.
I'd like another Canadian team, Mike. That's why.
All right.
Let's move it on down to Halifax or Nova Scotia, where Sydney's from.
I would love that.
That's where I'm going with this, Mike.
Okay, buddy. What do you
think?
I like it.
Okay.
Okay,
Mike.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. We'll add a team to Halifax and get rid of the team in Utah. How's that for a start? Lisa, good afternoon.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I have something I wanted to get out of my system since Monday. Thank God all the people that were on that plane looks like they're going to be okay. Sure that some of them are a little bit traumatized, but I think it's a sad commentary on the society that we're living in, that there was at least one person who thought it was a priority to film getting off that plane instead of getting the AG double hockey sticks out so that the people behind them could get out quickly as well. I just couldn't believe that was a priority for someone that had just been in a plane crash, and I just needed to get that out of my system.
Lisa, very well said. Thank you for that. What a world we live in, right? Where in the midst of an emergency like that, one of our priority thoughts is, I better get my phone out and record this for posterity. Anyway, totally on board with what Lisa has to say there. Remember, I come first and at number 2 is me, or something like that. I'm learning this today. Terry, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Mike.
I'm going to talk about Walter, your caller there. He's been talking about his kids in high school for years now. I thought that once you got to a certain age, you could play high school.
Easy, Terry.
No, I'm just saying.
Well, I thought you, Terry, be nice.
I'm just asking. Have
4 years. 4 years. Maybe it's only been 4 years. Don't be.
I don't know.
Don't be. How many years did you go to? How many years did you?
I was in high school, 40 some odd years ago. But listen, Mike.
It took me 6 years to get out of grade 12.
Okay, you're a better man than I am. No, I thought you had to be 19 and under at September 1st to play high school sports. But anyway, that's not what I'm talking about. Walter did call you some time ago, and he was asking you if you liked fights in hockey, because your response was, if my memory serves me correct, was that you go away to a commercial or you turn your back on it. So now you like fights again?
Yeah, I said that earlier. For me, the pendulum has kind of swung a little bit. And when we were talking about all of the, head traumas and the things that we've seen the former enforcers go through, I don't want that for anybody. And I will also add, honestly, when a fight happens in a Kitchener Rangers game that I'm broadcasting, I don't go out of my way to celebrate it or describe it like a boxing match. It just kind of is what it is. Because I'm a little bit reluctant to celebrate, but I love when it happens.
Yeah, because you heard about Bobby Hall.
Exactly. That's a great example, right? But
I think. Sorry, I'm just going to say I think hockey. I think fighting in hockey is they should outlaw it. There's no room for it anymore.
No, there's plenty of room. You saw the game the other night.
I know. I didn't watch it, but I saw the highlights. But the thing that gets me, Mike, is I know the stage fights have kind of gone by the wayside. But even now, I mean, what gets me is you're in a scrap with another player. And the guys, because it's hard to fight on skates, man. You're on steel blades.
It's part of the beauty of it.
Surface. Yeah, I know. But the thing is, you can lose your balance and fall. And the thing that gets me is the guy who you're fighting with. The guy loses his balance. You land on him, and you're pumping your fists in the crowd, thinking you won the fight. No, you didn't win. The other guy fouled, and you landed on him.
Whatever.
Come on.
Whatever. Well,
anyway, Mike,
have better
I think
balance.
Fighting should be out.
Stop
I think
it.
Fighting should be over.
Anyway, you should be outlawed.
Oh, there you go. Okay. Have a good day, Mike.
Thanks.
And let's hope for a good game tonight.
Are you going to watch it?
If I get home in time, I will.
Get home. Sure. Go home now.
There's no NHL on right now, so I'll go home now. Okay. Anyway, have a good day, Mike.
Thanks, Terry. You too. Huge game tonight. We're going to win, right? Canada is going to win. I have been excited about this game since last Saturday when Canada-US first met. This one, baby, for all the marbles. Your Talkback Hour continues. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is your Talkback Hour. The more we hear from you, the better. Back to the phones. Ed, good afternoon.
Hi, Mike. Haven't called in for quite a while. The only thing I've got against the NHL fighting, that is not teaching our kids right. Do you think so?
Yeah, I understand that for sure, Ed. But, if when you're grown up and it's allowed in the game, then what? If the kids don't like it, they don't have to play hockey.
Yeah, but you didn't raise any sons, did you? It's hard enough.
Not very well.
It's hard enough to keep them from fighting.
So you think it sets a bad example for the kids?
I think so.
Do you let them watch boxing or this mixed martial arts stuff?
No.
No, yeah. I don't know, Ed. I understand that point of view for sure.
My oldest son, he was into karate, and he was really good. But, he wasn't fighting. He never fought. He never got into fights.
Yeah, Mr. Miyagi taught us. It's so you don't have to fight. That's why you learn karate.
Right.
All right, Ed.
Okay.
Well, thanks for the call.
Yep, thanks, Mike.
You
Bye.
bet. Bye-bye. And look, again, I get it. All I will say in response is what I've been saying since we first brought up the subject, and that is these were grown-up adults who knew exactly what they were doing. Nobody did something they did not want to do, and so I'm okay with it. Because really, it's no different than a variety of other sports that, some of the sports are simply designed to fight. But in hockey, fighting is a part of it, and until they outlaw it completely, I'm in support of these fights where both participants are willing to engage. I am beyond excited for that game tonight. And as so many times you get this excited about something and then it's a letdown. I don't see how players of this caliber with both teams can let us down in terms of the entertainment value we're getting from this hockey game tonight. So go, Canada, go. This is about more than just sports pride on the line. This is our nation's pride on the line. So much going on. Can't wait for it. Hope you enjoy it. And hope you'll come back and join me for some conversation on the show tomorrow morning at 9. We're going to get you to Rob Snow with Now You Know from 1 until 3, right after this update from the 570 News Center. Colin Robertson, our guy on the other side of the glass. My name is Mike Farwell. Bye for now.